Well, we want to thank you guys for joining us this evening. I'm Johnny Caldwell.
And I'm Tanika Reeves,
and we are the Cocktail Bandits.
your curly ladies who talk cocktails daily.
And we are located in beautiful and historic Charleston, South Carolina. We're down here in the South, United States. Thank you guys for tuning in. Everyone who's located in Toronto, check us out to hear what we have to say and our perspective. And we also want to thank Jess and Josh for inviting us again to participate in the conference this year. We had a blast yesterday.
We really did. It was one of our favorite conferences that we went to last year. We learned so much. We got such a different perspective. Being in the States, especially in the South, we don't see as much diversity as we saw in Toronto. So, we have a lot to learn here in Charleston and just in the South in general, how you guys do things there.
Yes, and before we get into any of the meat and potatoes of our discussion, I do want to shout you guys out again for acknowledging your Indigenous community. That's something that you guys have done since we first met you guys, and we appreciate that acknowledgement. It does not happen enough in the States, are acknowledging our history with our Indigenous people and also our slave history. So you guys really confront those things and make it a topic of discussion as opposed to like trying to hide that stuff. So we appreciate you guys for being so progressive about that.
Yes, and also talking about issues like this. It's not a lot of wine and food conferences, cocktail conferences where you see a lot of diversity and inclusion conversations. So to be a part of a conference that is tackling that stuff head on before COVID, before all of the other Black Lives Matter situations has happened now, was very progressive, and we're honored to be a part of it.
That's right. We want to give you guys a little bit of our backstory so you can have some context on who Tanika and I are. We both are from South Carolina. I was born and raised in Charleston, and Tanika about 2 hours away.
Yeah, in a very small town called Mullins, South Carolina. 2 hours away from here. And we met at the College of Charleston back in 2004. So back in, 16 years ago now. And it was a school that was 94% white and 6% minorities. So every other ethnicity besides white was considered in the 6%. So it was very undiverse, but I'm grateful for going to the school because that's where I met my beautiful best friend and my business partner.
That's right. And Tanika and I both took political science classes at the College of Charleston. And for the majority of the time, we were usually the only Black females in those classrooms. So we had to get really comfortable being vocal in those spaces, asking questions, even though there was no one else, including the teacher who looked like us. So as political science majors, we really wanted to be involved in the political sphere, but not as politicians. So once we finished school, I went off to law school and Tanika got into the food and bev industry.
Yes, and in Charleston, the food and bev industry is not really diverse either. So my very first bar was right downtown. It was a very fun bar. It was a Coyote Ugly style. We got on the bar, we danced, we had a great time, but it was still lacking diversity. But, I was so used to it from college that I kind of just brought my mindset over to my workspace and realized that, hey, there's not a lot of people that look like me, but there's a lot that I can bring to the table. And that's when we realized, hey, there's something that we could be bringing to this atmosphere, this hospitality atmosphere that hasn't been brought before.
And I would come and see Tanika at whatever bar she worked at. She would make me these amazing cocktails. And at this point, I was really a passive consumer. I was in law school, I was really focused, I was studying, but when she would make me these drinks, I would have a deeper appreciation for the craft cocktail aspect. In Charleston, we were getting like all this international attention for our food team, but nothing was being talked about on the cocktail side of things. And there definitely weren't any women and no Black women who were talking about craft cocktail beverages. So that kind of always stuck with us. Once I graduated law school, I could not find work as a lawyer. Either I was underexperienced or I didn't have enough credibility. It just was really difficult for me to find work.
Or the look.
That too.
Or your look. And that was the same for me. I got into a lot of bars that were like college bars or just quick cocktail making bars, nothing that was like deep education or learning how to serve or hospitality. And so when I was going to those particular bars to learn more about the craft, no one was hiring me. I'm not saying it's because I looked different, but there were no women of color in any front of house downtown. And if there were, I probably can name two. And we have about 400 restaurants downtown. So that's the significance of really not seeing anyone like us in this atmosphere.
And as opposed to being discouraged by that, as opposed to being, discouraged by not being able to find employment, we thought it was an opportunity for us to just create our own space. So we went to social media and we wanted to, just connect with people. We didn't really know what we wanted to do, but we wanted to have a community of support, people who were upwardly mobile, who were doing things in hospitality and tourism that we were not seeing in Charleston.
Exactly. I mean, even when you think about small things as how our hair looks and the things that we like to wear, we wear big glasses, we wear jewelry. I mean, we're conservative tonight, but we usually wear colors with polka dots and patterns, and we just like to really express ourselves. And we created a safe space for ourselves to show our identities within the beverage world, still being a minority. And when we say minority, not only Black women, but just not really versed in cocktail culture, not really knowledgeable about the nuances or the community of hospitality, just not even knowing anything about blogging or influencer life or social media life. So every aspect of what we were trying to get into, we were the only. And that was, instead of looking at that as an obstacle, we really did look at it as an opportunity to create a space and a perspective that we haven't seen before.
So we got a cocktail kit offline and we basically made every drink inside that cocktail book with local ingredients. We would use loquats, we would use muscadines, things that were local to Charleston so that we can infuse some of that Charleston flair into our cocktails. And we started to grow a following. And we also were able to connect with other beverage professionals like Erlisha, who was on the conference a couple of weeks ago, and Ashton Berry, and we were able to link with people like Lex Luga, and we were like, okay, we're not alone.
Yeah.
We're not crazy. There is a market and there is an audience, and there are women who are out here killing it in their field and in their market.
Yes, and in that same vein, not only were we able to meet women of color that were in the professional realm, we were meeting enthusiasts and people who were intimidated about going to the bar and asking for particular drinks. We met this one young lady who was a lawyer who only ordered gin and tonics, and she hated gin and tonic. And we were like, well, why would you order this? And she said, well, this is all I know to order to look like I know what I'm talking about, or to look distinguished, or to look, I don't know what she was trying to look like, but she was drinking cocktails that she did not like. And we just realized that the need was bigger than even what we thought.
That's so true. Women, Black, white, everything, just not well versed in categories of spirits. So we wanted to educate our audience as we were educating ourselves. We joined the United States Bartenders Guild. We went to trainings. We went to seminars. We would hop a bus. We would hop a cab. We would just make sure that we were present so that we could educate ourselves, and so that we could also meet people who we could possibly work with and have brand partnerships with.
And also in that same vein, being in the Bartenders Guild and being the only women of color in the Bartenders Guild, we learned a lot, but we were also able to give them perspective on why there's not more people of color in the guild. They weren't going to the bars where people of color were working. They weren't going to the spaces where people of color were interested in learning more about booze. So we were able to basically be a bridge to connect those two worlds, which is essentially what we've become in Charleston.
And it's a huge responsibility. And we feel really honored to be able to give that feminine urban perspective to the spirits market, to feel as though that we can attract multicultural people to come out to events, to try different cocktails, to enjoy different spirits, and also to go out and visit different distilleries. We want people to feel like they are welcome in all these different spaces, especially if we're there, you're welcome to be there too. If we're drinking it, maybe you'll like it as well.
That is so true. And with those opportunities, excuse me, the goose. But with those opportunities, we were able to get some work with our tourism department, where we were able to make a cocktail that represented us at a festival, which we weren't even thinking about festivals back at that time. We didn't even know that festivals existed. And we had a festival that was in our own town for a decade. And we were in college, and we literally walked past this festival every spring break. And we never knew what was going on there because it wasn't marketed, or there weren't people that looked like me that was talking about the festival. I will say that. And so when we got the opportunity to go to Atlanta Food and Wine, we were expecting to see a lot more diversity. We were expecting to see a lot more culture. And what we found out was in the hospitality world, it's very homogenous still. We were able to go down there and make a cocktail to represent our culture here in Charleston, which was a huge honor to be able to make a beverage and put in a piece of our culture and be able to share it with them. And that was when it really sparked our purpose and what we're doing as far as in the beverage scene.
And during that experience, there were multiple times where we were thought to be the help. People thought we were volunteers. They thought that we were part of the maintenance staff, even though we had presenter badges on and we weren't in uniform. And we started to realize, wow, people just assume that we're not experts in this field or that we couldn't possibly be speakers or presenters. Why is that? Is there some sense of, some unconscious bias going on here? Are people just not used to seeing women of color speak at these platforms and talking about these topics? We wanted to, delve deeper into that and try to just expose some of those prejudices people don't realize that they may have.
Exactly. And that's a really big thing, because when you are in those spaces sometimes and you don't see anyone else that looks different than you, you think that this is normal. And it takes that person or that group or even that customer that comes in that doesn't look like you to make you realize, hey, where I'm working at really isn't that diverse. And in that space, it could be opportunity to grow, to be bigger than what you thought you were as far as your business, and just to have people that could bring you perspectives and ideas that could level your business up.
Yeah, so since we started Cocktail Bandits, our expertise and our services have expanded outside of just being recipe makers and event planners and coordinators, but we do a lot of diversity and inclusion work. We do a lot of work where we engage in the community with nonprofits. We work with LGBTQ teens and just trying to help them feel like there's a community around them. There's just so many spaces where people do not feel included or wanted. And we definitely want to, again, be that bridge, that connector for all these different communities. And, cocktails are, a liquid lubricant of social conversations. That's right. So people get to drink on, they get to talk in about some serious things, some uncomfortable things, but things that need to be discussed nonetheless.
Yes. And, after those festivals and the things that we've done in the States, we've also been able to travel abroad and to be able to be in Italy and talk about certain relations and things that we have going on in the States, or being in France. We were just in Cognac in February, and we're talking about some serious issues with the family that we stayed with in France, and talking about the issues that they have over there, just connecting over Cognac, if you will. We're here for Grey Goose, so, just connecting over that and just really learning that we all have our issues and we all have things that we can talk about and learn and grow and be better about. And we're all doing this over cocktails. It's just been a really great experience for us.
That's right. We did see Grey Goose while we were in Cognac. We did drive by.
We did see Grey Goose. We did.
We were over there by Hardy Cognac. So we did see it. So on our next trip, we're going to stop by and check out the location. But I think this is a good time to take a break and see if anybody has any questions that you guys want to drop into the comment section. That's just a little bit of history on us. And we have more questions about our journey and how we got to where we are in our business. We definitely will answer those. Just drop those questions in the Q&A.
Yeah. We love questions. We want this to be very informal and conversational. We can't see your beautiful faces. We usually love to see everybody's faces and drinking.
Yes, well, we didn't have the package that you guys got. We're in the States, so it takes a little bit longer for things to happen and get down here. But what we do have is some of this Grey Goose VX. So
yes.
It's premium ultra Grey Goose. We're sipping on that. It's lovely. But we did have some questions that we got asked previously. Jess and Josh put out a question on their Instagram page, what people wanted to talk about. And we can get started with those questions right now. Our topic is inclusivity increases profits. And, one of the questions that we were asked was, what are some examples of less quantifiable profits and financial benefits of inclusivity? And that's a great question.
Yeah.
There are so many non-financial benefits to having a more diverse and inclusive community. We have been talking about those benefits so much, just having more diverse conversations, having food be more culturally representative, having the music reflect all of the different dynamics in the room. But those aspects have not been as persuasive in moving restaurateurs, hoteliers, or PR companies to be marketing to minorities. So then we package it in a way that is dollars and cents, because people who are in business can never overlook dollars and cents. So if there's a whole market of people, a whole demographic of people who are not your potential clients, who are not coming into your establishments, you're missing out on a whole lot of money. So we're not trying to encourage people to, pirate behind minorities and prey on them as clients. But what we're saying is that you're missing out on money. You're also missing out on cultural influence, not having them in your space either.
Yes. And I say some less quantifiable things is just broadening your network. You'd be amazed at how many opportunities that you get outside of just money. You get to meet wonderful people. I know that us going to an event last year, we were able to meet this wonderful woman named Maggie Campbell, who's put us in positions to judge the American Craft Spirits competition. So it's not a money situation where we're making a lot of money, but we've been able to meet the top drink people in our industry here. And that's, invaluable. Just being able to sit down with the top writers and the top distillers in America and have conversations with them, because we're with them for 3 days, is something that you can't, oh, sorry, we're getting questions, that you can't pay for. So we're very honored to be in those spaces and be able to tell our perspective, because we're able to give our ideas now and let people take the blinders off of their eyes, and maybe they open their minds up a little bit to, hey, maybe I need to be a little bit more diverse. Maybe I'm subconsciously biased and I don't know that. And with those conversations, especially us both being political science majors, we know those conversations get to the bottom of a lot of issues that we have just overall in other fields.
Yeah, what she said. And also having a diverse group of people, we have so many friends and people who have gotten married from coming to our events, who have had children from coming to our events. So, just growing our community. You never know who you can fall in love with, who can be your next business partner, who can help you open up your next location. But if people aren't in your space, if they haven't seen what you have to offer, there really isn't anything that they can grow from or learn from what you have going on.
Yes. And also, I think the biggest thing is being able to have some empathy. If you have different walks of life in your space, if you have not only as a workspace, but actually patrons that come in and they're able to give you a different perspective that you didn't have before, that's life changing. And I think that that's stuff that money cannot pay for, but you have to have the experiences, because the experiences are what help us become better people.
And the reason why we're so particular about marketing to minorities, because we have been on the end of the stick where we did not feel like we were included.
Yeah.
So when you see an advertisement and you see a social media page, one of the first things that we always do before we work with a brand, is go to their social media. And if we don't see any Black faces, any Black hands, any curly hair, anything that looks ethnic or diverse, we're thinking that, are you coming to us to be performative? Are you coming to us to be tokenized? Because you don't have a history of working with minorities. So you have to actively market and include people of color for people to feel as though they're a part of your demographic. That's when people really feel like they're being preyed on. In light of the Black Lives Matter movement, we have been inundated with people reaching out to us who never gave us time of day before, who never responded to emails, who were not open to working with women of color who look like us, tall, curvy country women, now who are wanting to do that because they're feeling pressure from outside forces, and now it's a priority to be diverse. So being ahead of the game in marketing in outlets like certain social media pages or magazines, or being at festivals that are predominantly Latino, or predominantly people who have special needs. That's how you reach that market. That's how they feel as though, okay, maybe they will have a wheelchair ramp for me at the festival because they were at the Special Olympics event.
Right.
Maybe they will have, hair care products for me because they were at this festival, even though this is a Fidel Sassoon type of conference. People have to feel as though they can actually use whatever you're selling. And if you're not marketing it to them, they will feel like it's not for them.
And I think too, connecting with people of color give you things that haven't existed yet. I always want to shout out Ashton Berry and Radical Exchange. It is one of the best conferences that I've ever went to in my life, not only because all of the panels are people of color and they're talking about their own stories and things that they've gone through in the hospitality industry. It's the first conference that we've ever gone to where people look like us and we can relate. Like we can sit down and have a conversation with someone because they've gone through the same things that I've gone through. They have braids like me. They have a fro like me. Like, I mean, it's just certain things that we don't ever think about as far as connections. And with that festival, so many people are there who look so different. There's old people there, young people there, gay, straight, Black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian. I mean, just every color. And I just want to commend Ashton and her team for seeing this years ago. And this is exactly why we wanted to be a part of Radical Exchange, have been there the last 2 years, and people like Toronto Cocktail Conference, who's doing the work as well. We appreciate y'all, and anything that y'all need from us, we will do.
Who are doing it right, and before it was trendy.
Yes, we appreciate that so much.
We have another question.
It says, what if, let me get the right question because I paraphrased, and I want to make sure that's right.
Where's the email? Oh, she has that one. Let's do this one right here.
Okay. What is the main trouble you face when you visit bars in other countries? We have been grateful to go to other countries with PR companies and with tourism agencies, and we have been blessed to not really have any problems. If there were problems, thankfully we didn't know the language, we didn't understand what was being said, so that wasn't an issue for us. But we've been able to be treated really well, very kind, and they were very inquisitive and wanted to know our experience. Oh, okay, it's from Mexico. Okay.
We were in Mexico.
We were in Mexico as well, but we went with a brand, and they put us up and made sure that we were treated very well. So I like to really thank those brands and our hosts because we felt right at home. It was really good experiences for me and her.
I want to say the last time I was in Mexico, I was there without Tanika, and whenever we're not together, it's weird. Yeah. Whenever we're in another country, we're not together, you feel like the other half of you is missing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I was looking like a sad puppy in the airport, and so many Mexican women just rode up on me and was like, "Can I help you? Do you need something?" I got offered food. I got offered a ride. I got offered, "Do I need a cell phone to call somebody?" Like so much support. So much love. They wanted to take pictures of us, which is fine. They're just inquisitive about the hair, the culture. Like they're like, "Why are you here? What's going on?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that made me feel welcome. That made me feel as though, okay, I would feel comfortable coming here with a group of friends. I would feel comfortable sending my friends here to have an experience here. I know people say so many things about it not being safe, but I always felt safe whenever I was in Mexico, even when I was by myself.
Same.
In Europe, people are like inquisitive, like never felt threatened. A lot of Italian men found, us attractive. So that's always great. But it was a great experience. Definitely asked some tough questions when we were in Cognac about, and we get asked this all the time, why people of color like Cognac, especially Black people, why they look like Hennessy. And that's also why we talk about marketing to minorities, because that's a brand who has done their marketing really, really well towards a specific demographic. Mm-hmm. We look at the history of a company like Cognac and how there were Black American soldiers over in France during the war who got a taste for Cognac. So when they came back home, they were wanting it. They were looking for it. Also, Hennessy was one of the only brands that allowed Black men, people of color, to market and sell their products. This is Hennessy, this is Crown Royal who did this. So this is why we have such an attachment to these brands, because they've always been in our community. So again, if you're looking to make your minority audience feel more included, have some of those brands that you know are familiar to that audience. You know, it can be very intimidating going into a bar and seeing nothing but high-end, you know, bourbons, nothing but, you know, vermouths you can't pronounce. But if there's something on the bar that I'm familiar with, I'm comfortable, I'm settled. I know I can order at least one drink.
I can order at least one Grey Goose.
That's
I can get a Grey Goose.
Yes, and I can enjoy that. So just make your audiences feel comfortable. Maybe consider what music you're playing in your bar or restaurant. Is it just all country music? Is it all classic music? Is it a mixture of your pop, you know, top 40? All of that can make a multicultural audience feel more comfortable and more accepted in your space.
Yeah. And what is your mission statement? Like what is the message that you're bringing out to the masses as far as with your staff, with your workplace, and with your employees? I mean, with your guests. What kind of people do you want to see in your workspace, in your environment? What are you trying to learn? How are you trying to grow? Those are questions that me personally, we ask ourselves all the time, because we're around each other a lot and we're together a lot. So sometimes our ideas are the same, and we'll go and talk to people who don't look like us, who don't know really anything about our business. We'll even focus on people in fitness, or in fashion, or in hair, in any of those spaces, to try to see how we can bring that diversity into beverages, because you can always learn something different and new and bring it to your actual business.
And we have some more questions here. This is from Chris Rail. Given the political climate of the U.S. currently, do you feel your movement has suffered, or has this lit a fire within your circle to push through and educate with louder voices? That's a great question.
Okay. I feel like the fire has always been lit. The fire was lit 7 years ago, and now this is just adding some, what is the stuff called? The bring the flames bigger, the
lighter fluid.
Lighter fluid, yes. We're just adding some fluids to the fire, because I feel like we've already put in a lot of the work and was already talking about a lot of these things before we got into this situation that we're in now. And now we've built so many connections with brands just on a personal level, because we don't really do negative press. So we've had bad experiences with different liquor companies or restaurants or hotel groups or anything of the like. We sit down with them and we talk to them about that, and we see how we can fix it behind the scenes. There's a lot of negative press. There's a lot of negative energy just going around all the time, even before COVID and everything that was going on. And we just try to do our best with our brand to bring out the best and highlight brands that really support us and love us, because there's not enough love going around. And we educate behind the scenes. So now some of those same brands who didn't quite see what we were talking about then see it now, and they come back to us with different eyes and different ways that they're trying to talk to us, as far as compensation, as far as just acknowledgement, as far as just graciousness. So I feel like this has taken blinders off a lot of people's eyes, and they can actually see what we're talking about now.
The follow-up on that is also, do you see yourselves having to adapt to change your direction? And I just want to reiterate what Tanika said. Our mission is the same. You know, it's going to stay on being and creating a more diverse food and beverage space. You know, what I'm happy about is that there are more brands who are feeling like now it's a priority to be able to have that be something that they focus on and have in their goals as well. And we're grateful for the opportunities that we have to be able to instruct and assist those brands on making that happen. But we are steadfast on that mission. We are very involved in our local politics here in Charleston, in our community here, because we feel like change happens locally. And you have to continue with that message. I think sometimes people get, you know, caught up in the cocktails, and they get caught up in some of the lifestyle stuff that we do, but that's only to get the discussion happening. Once we have a drink, now we're talking about how we can, you know, encourage people to go to college, and how we can, you know, open up entrepreneurship, and, you know, fair housing, all that good stuff is also being discussed. So, you know, the cocktails are just a part of it.
Absolutely. Chris, this is a great 3-part question. Unfortunately, we tend to see only the truly awful news here in Canada versus the positive that are going on in various states. Yeah, absolutely. But you know, negative news travels faster than positive news. I was seriously watching a motivational video earlier, and it was saying that when you get negative information, it takes 16 positive messages to kind of neutralize that. So we keep that in our mind that the negative news travels and it really builds emotions and get people worked up, and they respond quickly sometimes and are really, it's just a crazy time. We're sitting at home. I mean, people don't know how to respond right now. So there are positive things going on. I would like to say that like our book situation, how we were able to get the book, Holy Spirits, Charleston's Cocktails, Culture Through Cocktails.
That's it. Yeah.
Like how we were able to get the opportunity was just not giving up. You know, we would just write on our blog. We would go to events that were free, but we knew they had beverages and just cover everything. We just wanted to be exposed and expose people to our experience in the same culture. And our book company, when they approached us, they wanted a blog in book form. It was an opportunity that we weren't even thinking about for the next 3 to 5 years. And with that, we ended up becoming the very first Black women in America to write a cocktail book. So that wasn't even on our mind. We didn't even know that we were the first Black women to write a cocktail book for 6 months because we just could not believe that was the case. But when you think about our history in America, as far as with slavery and literacy and how we pass down our traditions orally versus writing them down, you start to learn and make sense of why these things are still the first in 2020. So that's a positive that I want to bring out there. Our publishing company has never had any Black women on the front of a cocktail book, and they've never had any Black women authors. So that was just a big opportunity for us.
Definitely grateful to have that. There's a lot of love coming out of the States right now. I mean, we're seeing unprecedented generosity from a lot of local small organizations who are organizing food drives, clothing drives. Our schools just started back up here locally, so they're doing back to school drives for kids. And these are people who are working everyday jobs. They don't have a whole lot of money, but they're giving what they have. They're giving their time. They're giving their services. So that's really inspiring to me because all of those movements, the big ones start small. They start locally. They involve people who look like you and I, just wanting to help. So we're seeing a lot of that happen here locally and all over the United States. So it's not all bad.
It's not. And we're noticing a lot of young people getting involved in the community. We know young people here who are raising money for elderly homes, old folks' homes. We know, and these are young people of color who are just taking the power and putting it in their own hands and seeing what they can do instead of being complainers, actually going out and doing things in the community. So we appreciate that.
Another question we have from Donna Newton. Hey, Donna Newton.
Donna Newton, mother extraordinaire.
That's right. What advice would you give a person over 50 who wants to order at a new bar with confidence? What's a good cocktail to suggest? Great question.
Well, first I want to talk about ageism and how they're minorities a lot when they want to come out to bars and have a nice drink and they don't feel comfortable coming into the bar. They don't feel like there's people in there that look like them, and how we need to, one, do some focus groups with older, seasoned patrons so we can learn how to cater to them. Because I mean, when I'm 50, I want to go out too and have a cocktail or 3. I've earned it at that point. But I will say classics, Donna. My very first suggestion would be ordering a nice classic margarita or an old fashioned or a Manhattan, or even a nice glass of red. I think all of those are sexy, and we need sexy cocktails when we're in our 50s, honey.
You a beautiful martini with Grey Goose.
Yes.
At the bar, that always works. Yeah, start with something that, if you like bourbon, if you like vodka, start with a cocktail that has that as the base. Also, in our book, we talk about bandit behavior and how you can go to a bar early during happy hour so that you can engage with the bartender. Not when it's crazy busy, like during, peak late hours at 11 when they're smashed. I mean, not right now, it's not like that, but in normal circumstances, go during when it's not busy and chat up your bartender. Have them explain to you, what is a vermouth? what is a Negroni, because you shouldn't feel intimidated by these cocktails. They're for your enjoyment. You just haven't been exposed to them yet.
And you're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be uncomfortable. Anything that you're spending your dollars on, you need to know what you're spending your money on.
And it should be good, because you also want to make sure that when they make it for you, that it's right. There's been so many times we've been at bars and we've ordered something and that's not what we received. And we had to go back and forth with the bartender like, hey, this isn't it, babe. This is not it. Mm-hmm. And they thought that we didn't know what we know. So when you have that confidence and you can challenge the bartender and say, hey, I know this is not Reposado, this is Blanco, or this is not this brand, it also builds your confidence and makes you feel like, you know, hey, I'm sophisticated. I know about this cocktail thing.
Absolutely. And Donna is also Johnny's mom.
Yes.
And she runs for local politics here in Charleston. We've supported her. We've done some cocktail campaigns and some meet and greets with Miss Donna Brown Newton. And she is a huge supporter of our brand, and we appreciate her so much.
She was with us in Toronto last year. So that was a good time.
Yes. So we have a question here that says, what if your workplace is pretty monocultural? For me, because our workplace is pretty monocultural, we just, first of all, we immerse ourselves in the environment and just make observations. We just see how things are run. And then we see how we can add our perspective and our flavor to the situation if we want to be in that situation. There's also times where it's a pretty monocultural place and you don't feel accepted, and it might be best to leave and go somewhere else. But if it's somewhere that you want to be and you feel comfortable and you feel like you can grow and become better, I definitely advise, just offering suggestions, see how they receive the suggestions. And what we've done when we've worked in spaces that weren't very monocultural, weren't very diverse, we suggested people that we thought were great for the job. So we would find people that we knew were great event planners, and we would get them involved in our local festival. If they were like local bloggers, we get them involved in like a street team promotion or a social media activation campaign, because there's so many times where brands and businesses will say, well, we can't find people of color. We don't know where they are. We looked on Indeed, or we looked on, I don't know what websites, LinkedIn or things like that. But you'd be surprised how many people of color don't even think that some of these are careers or even upward mobility, that they could make something out of these jobs. So I think that we need to do a better job educating patrons and people, staff, on how this can be a position that can be a career.
For sure. And we don't have to all be boxed into certain roles too. I see a lot of people hiring Black people to be security or to be on the maintenance staff.
Or back of house.
To be back of house on the line cooking. And there's so much opportunity that you can offer someone who, has the skills. It just needs to be given the chance to use those skills in those professions. I don't have any training in bartending outside of Cocktail Bandits. So on paper, I wouldn't look like someone who you would want to hire. But I have all the skills and the charisma and all that to work in that space. So sometimes you need to take a chance on someone who doesn't have the experience, but is coachable, who you can train to be in that role, who is moldable, who doesn't have all that baggage from a previous experience at a bad location, that's just open to learning how to be in your space. So maybe your job needs your voice to be the one that says, hey, we need to change up the culture here. We need to be more open and more diverse in the space. And here are a few ways how we can do that, even within that monoculture within the bar.
But with that being said, you're not really being in the culture. You are able to bring perspectives to the hospitality industry that people in the culture are not thinking about, because you are a consumer. You were coming in as an experienced person. So you were able to bring a perspective that I didn't have because I was behind the bar. So that's the whole point of you being in that minority and being able to add something to something that was already going on.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's why there's two of us, y'all.
So we're going to keep going with these questions, y'all. Y'all are great. This is Dante. You mentioned you always reference a brand social media to see how inclusive they are already before agreeing to partner. As someone in the hospitality marketing industry, what advice would you give a brand or bar establishment who hasn't actively advertised inclusivity even if not on purpose, on social media? How can they genuinely start to do so without making it seem forced or all of a sudden? That's a great question.
Yes. My thoughts are be upfront with that.
Mm-hmm.
Say that we have failed in the past to make this a priority. We have overlooked this. And now that we realize that it's an issue that's affecting the culture in our establishment, our overall well-being, now we're taking an active role in reaching out to minorities. Honesty is the best policy always.
Yeah. And I would also advise, if you're in a local area, find your local influencers. There are people of color in the sphere somewhere. They might not have 20,000 followers, but they might have 5,000 super active followers, and they just need an opportunity to grow and build. There's also ways to make cocktails or do focus groups where you're making cocktails and asking them questions, asking locals, go to locals and ask people that you see in the neighborhood, why have you not ever been to our restaurant or our bar? What can we do to better our business to make you feel comfortable coming here? And you'd be surprised how receptive people are to that and how many more people will come just because they felt like you cared.
And if you get some pushback from a marketing company or influencer who may challenge your integrity or your motives for doing that, do not be offended by that. You have to realize that so many times we are out here begging for an opportunity, and it can be incredibly discouraging to your spirit to know that you're qualified to do work and you're not getting the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
And you see people who are less qualified, who are not as experts in their field, get those chances. It can really make you want to change your career, change up what you're doing. So be honest, be open, say that, and also pay these people. You got a marketing budget, lead with that. Say, we have a budget to pay you this much for your work. Don't ask these people for free labor, for their opinion. Don't ask them to get on the phone so you can pick their brain. All that is labor. All that is work. All that time is emotional stuff that these people are giving you for no compensation.
Right.
You stop asking for people's time if you're not going to compensate them. So if you're going with them, someone you haven't working with before, lead with those things. It makes you more receptive on the receiving end to even respond. If you're leading with, this is a paid opportunity, I want to pay you for your influence and your response, for your input.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But focus groups really are important. And I feel like there are what's the word? How do you say it? Non-financial
benefits.
There are non-financial benefits that you can also offer. There are a lot of bloggers and influencers and lifestyle people who need space, who need a venue, who need to have somewhere where they can meet. We were doing business out of our home. I mean, we still are now, especially with COVID. And we didn't have like bars and restaurants to meet at. We didn't have a lot of money at the time. And that could have helped the bar, that could have helped the restaurant, that could have helped us, where we have a place to meet. We know we're going to get a certain amount of cocktails, some kind of bartering system where if you don't have the marketing budget at a certain level, you can still offer something to them where they're not feeling like they're giving all of their value and they're not receiving anything.
Acknowledge it works well too. Sharing their content on your page, because that gives them followers. That gives them opportunity for them to be able to leverage what they have going on.
Credibility.
It leads credibility to what they have going on. So there are multiple non-financial benefits that you can give marketing companies and influencers, and even people that you want to hire. Put them in this training program. If you just hired a bartender, see if they want to be a cicerone and pay for that training. See if they want to be members of the USBG and pay for that membership. All that gives them an incentive to be a part of your organization.
And I know you guys are in Toronto, but going to conferences like Toronto Cocktail Conference and meeting people of color there and actually building genuine relationships can also lead to you having some kind of partnership or work relationship where you're able to benefit from one another. Because that's the whole point, being able to mutually benefit.
That's right. Has to be mutual.
Yes. And this is from Mr. Josh. If you are running a bar and notice that your clientele all look the same, age, skin color, all of that, what is a good way to change that? Pretty much the same thing that we were saying just now. Just getting yourselves out there. Even finding events of color. Like I know you guys have a big Caribbean festival there. I mean, just jump into that right before Toronto Cocktail Week and meet some really cool people, and even cross promoting. You might meet someone in the hair world or in fashion or, you know, in any other demographic that could grow your clientele, and it could be, again, a mutual relationship.
That's such a good point. We really try to encourage people who host festivals in the South to go out and visit other cultures and other festivals that are not within their industry. Because not only can you borrow some of what they're doing as far as education and entertaining, but you can actually see, oh, they have bartenders who are making cultural drinks that reflects the Caribbean or reflects Africa or reflects their culture. Now you can see what they have to offer. And then there's also brands you can work with. So go outside of your comfort zone and visit some of these more culturally diverse and urban establishments to see how they're doing things. I don't want to say go and, you know, poach their talent, but you can definitely kind of see how they're doing things there and kind of model your efforts after them.
Absolutely. These questions have been amazing.
And shout out to our assistant, Julia. She's so good.
And Kasia. I think it's Kasia. I hope that's the right way out. If it's wrong, I apologize, because people mess my name up all the time too. In Toronto, we're having a lot of conversations about getting rid of tip culture, with some of the reasons coming with the realization being that it is a racist history, and the way people tip BIPOC can be racist as well. Do you feel this is realistic? How do we do it while balancing small margins? Woo, sis, that is a very deep question. And I think with our history and how long we've acclimated to tip culture, we're gonna have to take some time and talk to people in the industry, outside of the industry, like just different walks of life, to figure out that answer, because that's super, super deep and nuanced. And when you're used to getting paid off your tips, it's a whole nother world when you start getting paid hourly. I understand both sides, because I've been paid hourly and I've been paid with tips. And that's just something that we're going to have to dig into for years. I don't think that that's going to be something that we can answer anytime in 2020 and probably 2021 and beyond, because it's just, that's super deep.
I think we should definitely educate on the history of tipping. And it's funny you say that. That's a part of our normal presentation. We talk about how tipping is a hangover from slave culture. So I think if people realize the origin of some of these things, it'll cause them to reevaluate some of these processes too. In light of COVID-19 and people being home and not being able to make those tips, and then getting a set stipend every week in unemployment, you realize that that doesn't work either, that isn't enough to pay the bills, especially when there's no health insurance, there's no retirement that comes along with that, there's no type of like medical benefits. So
there's not enough guests coming in now.
Exactly.
So 50% occupancy, you're not going to make any money. Really, even with the tips, it's hard to make money in that space.
And we definitely have seen a difference in between how people of color are tipped and how white servers are tipped. Even when it comes down to who gets that table, it is very typical for a Black server to be assigned to a Black setting, as a Black table, because they assume the tip is going to be what, or they're going to be demanding, or whatever the prejudice is on that circumstance. So I think the more we talk about it, the more that we educate within our own communities about the service industry, that they're only getting paid $2.13 an hour. That puts things more in perspective too. Before I was a Cocktail Bandit, I didn't realize that's what it was. I had my friend had to educate me on that. So you're thinking as a consumer, why am I having to pay your salary? Don't you work here? But you don't know what the structure is. So the consumer needs to be educated, and the people who are running these establishments need to reevaluate their structure as far as their margins and how they're paying their staff.
Yeah, I think the whole restaurant industry needs to reevaluate the structure, because putting it on us to make the decision and is really deep, and it's overwhelming to have to be the one to figure out the answer to a problem that we didn't create. So, I mean, that's just Kasia, that's a long conversation, honey, but it does need to be talked about, and we do have to have awareness of what we have going on.
Tip culture is real. I mean, we talk about, it's so deep. It is so deep, sis. And I wish that we had a straightforward answer for that. People have been pushing the $15 an hour initiative here in the States. Bernie Sanders was the big person who was pushing that. I don't think that is sufficient enough either, but it's a start. Universal health care. I mean, there's just so many different things that could help offset the responsibility on us as consumers who go to the bars, who make the tipping situation a little bit less stressful. Because I feel like having to evaluate every server right after your service is pressure on the consumer too, to be like, is this a $5 tip or a $7 tip? Should I leave them $10? Should I leave them $4? Like, that's too much pressure. I'm trying to enjoy myself.
I mean, we're trying to still educate people on why they're paying $14 for a beverage.
All right.
Because, you know, some people don't understand why they're paying $14 for a cocktail. So it's just all about education on so many levels in the bartender server world.
Is that all our questions? One other thing that we want to be direct about addressing is the issue and the question of minority. We were asked on social media about our use of the term minority when we were referring to this class and just referring to non-white people in general. Mm-hmm. And we definitely, did not mean to offend anyone with the use of that term, but minority best describes the groups that we're talking about. We're not just talking about minority in the aspects of Black women, just anyone who's in a setting where they're the only. That makes you a minority.
Very few.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just wanted to give light and speak specifically to that because we don't know the experience that a Latinx person has when they walk into the bar. Mm-hmm. But I know it probably is akin to my experience as a minority, as a Black woman when I go into a bar. So we want to try to, at least address the fact that we're all having different experiences in different spaces and that needs to change. And when we're talking about minorities, there are specific steps you need to take in order to engage that audience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and just noticing that you can be a majority in situations as well. Like I said, with the Tails, I had a Tails experience 2 years ago where I met Yannick Benjamin, and he is a sommelier who's in a wheelchair. And before that experience, I never ever thought about people who are in wheelchairs and their accommodations, if they're working in a restaurant, if they're working behind a bar. I never had that in my mind. That was the privilege I had for not, because I walk every day. So I never even thought about that. So when we talk about minority, we're talking about all the people who are left out of the conversation when these buildings are being built, when these bars are being built, when these handicap ramps or non-ramps are being made in the front of the building. It's just so many different issues, ageism, sexism. There are women who are more voluptuous, who are not being accommodated for, and we just want to include everyone and let them know that being a minority is not a bad thing, not to us. We've reclaimed that, and we look at it as an opportunity to bring something that hasn't been brought to the table, and in turn, that opportunity can end up making you some money. And what's wrong with that? What's wrong with taking what makes you you and having that make you a life? And that's what we really preach and promote in Cocktail Bandits.
And that's right. What Tanika said, I want to just overly reiterate what she is saying. And when we talk about minority and how that swings depending on what environment that you're in, because we definitely have privilege in certain circumstances. So, and that goes for everyone. Everyone has disadvantages and privileges that comes along with their hair, their race, their weight, their age. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about the last time you saw a menu. Did it have Braille on it? Did it have anything that would help assist someone who was blind or deaf to be able to read that stuff? So these are all things that we are privileged and that we don't even think about in our dining experiences that other people can't even engage in because of these obstacles.
Exactly. And we always say that if we weren't the minority in our business, we would not have met the majority of the people in the beverage business. Like being able to put ourselves out there, and which is what I want to tell people who feel like they're not being represented, immerse yourself in those spaces. People will start inquiring like, okay, why are you here? What's going on? And then you can start sharing your perspective and what you believe in, because nobody believed that we would be doing what we're doing at this point. They just thought that we were doing a little cute passion project, wanted to get drunk, travel around town, and make a couple of easy recipes. And we're still around 7 years later, and we're having tough conversations with our politicians. We're having conversations with people that are over really big festivals, changing the paradigm. And these are the opportunities that we've created because our perspective wasn't there. And now we're able to be in a space where we're like, hey, we need to add a little bit more to y'all's flavor so it can be delicious. I mean, we're just missing some ingredients, just missing some salt, and we just adding in our own like perspective, and in turn it helps everyone. So we don't shy away from the word minority. It's used a lot in Charleston to gauge people of color and Black businesses and Hispanic businesses. And I'm probably saying that wrong as well. Like I said, we're figuring this out together, and we're learning what's correct, what's not correct. But I don't want to be afraid to say what I'm feeling, because if I can't express myself, how can we ever get better?
And how can we learn? You know, we have to be able to grow from where we currently are.
Yeah.
As we mentioned earlier, our book, Holy Spirits, Charleston's Culture Through Cocktails, is the first book written by African-American women. So we're one and two, however you want to do it. We're that. And we want to encourage other people, other minorities, other cultural backgrounds to write books as well about your drinking and food ways. We need to keep a record of all these things. We had such a hard time finding pictures, names, addresses of people that we knew existed, people who we knew were a part of our beverage history and culture, but there was no documentation of it. And that also can be tied to slavery and how we weren't allowed to read and write and things like that.
Or be acknowledged, because we were property.
I mean, you guys seen with Jack Daniels how they have recently acknowledged that they got a lot of their training from their distiller from a former enslaved African. Mm-hmm. And that happens all over the place, especially in the South. So we want to encourage people to write their stories, get a blog, get a website, start an Instagram page, and just showcase whatever you love, whatever interests you. You'll be surprised who else is looking for that very same content.
Absolutely. And shout out to Shannon Mustafer as well. She wrote a cocktail book, and we met her in New Orleans right before she dropped her book, and we were super excited for her. We're excited for anybody that's doing something and adding something to our culture, because it's all needed. We're looking for the Latina books, and we're looking for the African books, and we're looking for all of those
Canadian
things. The Canadian books
with the indigenous people's cocktails in it. I mean, that stuff intrigues us so much.
Yeah.
Because what I will say about Charleston is it's a very hospitable space. In the South, we're very polite, but that doesn't always translate into kindness.
Yeah.
And what I experienced in Toronto was an abundance of kindness. People were being nice, and it seemed very genuine. So we appreciate the open dialogues that you guys have. We're getting to that place in Charleston and in the South where we're talking more about race relations, and where it's not something that people say, oh no, don't talk about it in this setting, because we have that culture here.
Yes, it's very polite here, and it's very, I mean, in the very beginning, we were condemned for having cocktails in our hands. They were like, don't take pictures. Southern ladies don't take pictures with cocktails in their hand. So we had to like get that out of our mind as well, that hey, it's okay to have a beverage in your hand and take you a nice photo, especially if it's your job. So
even our book name, Holy Spirits, we got some pushback from that as well, because they're like, Holy Spirits, what are you talking about? You're in the South. But you know, there is definitely a ceremonial background to spirits. So we want to acknowledge and remind people of that, you know, Jesus did turn water to wine.
Period.
So, you know, there's a place for everyone in this space, and we're honored that people love to hear from us, that people enjoy our cocktails and enjoy attending our events. We look forward to, you know, us as a community moving past this COVID-19 pandemic and being able to go back to the bars and restaurants and festival scenes to drink and enjoy each other in person.
And learn more about different people and different cultures. You just have no idea what it's done for us to be able to be immersed in these different cultures, not only in other countries, but in the States. It's so different in LA than it is here in Charleston or New Orleans, or even Bloomington, Indiana, where we went last year for a cocktail competition. just seeing how things are so much bigger than where you are lets you know that there's work that can and will be done, and there's hope for things to be better.
We want to thank all the essential workers who are out there in the hospitals, who are in the schools teaching the children, the bus drivers, the cab drivers,
the restaurant workers, the hospitality world.
We appreciate you all for risking your health to come out and serve us and to be of service. We want to encourage everyone else to stay at home if you can, wash your hands, wear a mask, and we will get through this together.
Absolutely. And we also want you guys to hit us up if you have any other questions, or if you want to collab, or just, just say hi to the girls. You can find us on at Cocktail. Thank you, Stephanie. You're the bomb. But you can find us at Cocktail Bandits on all social media outlets. And you can also go to our website, www.cocktailbandits.com, to see the cool stuff that we have going on. Any suggestions, any critiques, we take those as well. Anything to be better, we are open to it.
We appreciate y'all and your time tonight.
Yes.
Thank you, Grey Goose. Thank you, Toronto Cocktail Conference. Jess and Josh, y'all are awesome.
Keep being amazing.
Cheers.
We hope to see you guys in Toronto very, very soon.
In the 66666. Cheers.